The city pulsed under the weight of the night, its towering skyscrapers piercing the sky like silent sentinels. Rain drizzled against the pavement, forming small puddles that reflected the golden glow of streetlights. The air was thick with the scent of damp asphalt and distant car exhaust, blending into the ever-present hum of a metropolis that never truly slept. In an alleyway, nestled between two aging brick buildings, a girl no older than 10 sat curled against the cold stone wall. She clutched a small, battered teddy bear against her chest, her fingers tracing the fabric absent-mindedly. The bear's fur was matted, its once bright eyes dulled with time and grime. Yet, to her, it was the only piece of comfort in an otherwise unforgiving world. Her stomach ached with hunger, a dull, gnawing sensation she had grown accustomed to. She counted the coins in her hand, barely enough for a piece of bread, if the store clerk didn't chase her away first. She had learned painfully that people rarely showed kindness to a child with torn clothes and tangled hair. The world was indifferent to the forgotten. A gust of wind swept through the alley, carrying with it the faint sound of footsteps. Lily tensed, instinctively drawing her knees to her chest. Strangers were unpredictable. Some ignored her, some yelled at her to leave. A few pretended to care, offering empty smiles before disappearing just as quickly as they had come. Trust was a luxury she couldn't afford. On the other side of the city, in a vastly different world, Olivia Carter stood at the window of her high-rise office, gazing at the rain streaking down the glass. Below, the city stretched endlessly, its lights flickering like a constellation of artificial stars. She had built her empire here, brick by metaphorical brick, clawing her way to the top with sheer determination and an unyielding will. Olivia was the kind of woman who commanded a room without speaking. Her presence alone demanded respect, her reputation built on years of relentless ambition. She had fought for everything, every contract, every acquisition, every hard-earned victory. Nothing in her life had been given freely, yet, for all her success, there was an emptiness she rarely acknowledged. It lurked in the quiet moments between meetings, in the silence of her penthouse, in the way she avoided looking at old photographs buried deep in a drawer she never opened. A sharp knock at the door pulled her from her thoughts. "Ms. Carter, your car is ready," her assistant informed her, his voice professional, distant. She nodded, grabbing her coat. Another long day, another set of obligations. The cycle was predictable, calculated, and that was how she preferred it. As Olivia stepped outside, the city greeted her with its usual chaos. Horns blaring, people rushing past each other, their lives intersecting for mere seconds before continuing along their separate paths. She moved through the crowd effortlessly, her presence a stark contrast to the hurried energy surrounding her. Meanwhile, just a few blocks away, Lily sat in front of a small cafe, staring through the glass at the pastries displayed inside. The scent of freshly baked bread made her stomach clench painfully, but she knew better than to go inside. She had tried before. The last time, the owner had chased her out before she could even speak. The door swung open, and a man in a suit walked past, tossing a crumpled napkin into the trash. Lily's gaze flickered downward as something else tumbled from his pocket, a neatly folded $20 bill. Her breath hitched. Money like that could mean food for days. But before she could reach for it, a heavy hand landed on her shoulder. "What do you think you're doing?" a rough voice demanded. Lily's heart pounded as she looked up. The cafe owner. I wasn't stealing," she stammered. "Liar," the man snapped. "I've seen you lurking around. Get lost." A firm shove sent her stumbling backward. The bill fluttered to the ground, forgotten, as Lily turned and ran. She didn't stop until she reached the next block, her breath coming in short gasps. People moved past her without a second glance. She was just another invisible face among the city's countless forgotten souls. But then, something unexpected happened. A voice, sharp yet composed, cut through the noise. "Hey, are you okay?" Lily froze. She turned slowly, her gaze locking onto a woman standing a few feet away. Dressed in a sleek black coat, her heels clicking against the pavement, she looked completely out of place against the city's grittier corners. Olivia Carter. The woman's expression was unreadable, but there was something in her eyes, something Lily wasn't used to seeing. Not pity, not disdain, something else entirely. And for the first time in a long time, Lily hesitated. She wasn't sure if she should run or stay. The rain had eased to a drizzle, leaving the city washed in a faint shimmer as Olivia Carter stood on the sidewalk, her gaze fixed on the frail figure before her. The girl, small and wary, looked like a shadow of someone who had learned to blend into the background, avoiding attention at all costs. Lily didn't move. She barely even breathed. Her instinct told her to run, to disappear before this stranger could decide what she wanted. Kindness, in her experience, was often laced with ulterior motives, and yet something about this woman was different. "Are you hurt?" Olivia asked again, her voice calm but firm. Lily shook her head quickly, gripping her teddy bear tighter as if the worn fabric could shield her from whatever came next. For a long moment, they simply stared at each other, two worlds colliding. In the middle of a city that neither noticed nor cared, Olivia wasn't sure why she had stopped. She wasn't the type to get involved in things that didn't concern her. Life had taught her that sentimentality was a liability, and charity was often exploited. Yet something about the girl tugged at something buried deep within her, something she had long since silenced. She sighed. "Do you have anywhere to go?" Lily hesitated. She could lie. She was good at it when she had to be. Saying yes would end the conversation quickly, and Olivia would walk away just like everyone else. But for some reason, the words wouldn't come. Her silence was answer enough. Olivia exhaled sharply. She should walk away. This wasn't her problem. But as she looked at the girl soaked and trembling in the cold, she knew she wouldn't. "Come on," she said, turning before she could question her own decision. Lily hesitated again. People didn't just offer help, at least not without expecting something in return. But the alternative was another night in the alley, another night of hunger. With slow, uncertain steps, she followed. The car was warmer than anything Lily had felt in weeks. Soft leather seats, the scent of expensive perfume lingering in the air. She sat stiffly, unsure if she was allowed to touch anything. Olivia watched her from the corner of her eye. The girl was tense, curled into herself like a stray animal, unsure. "If it was safe, what's your name?" she asked. A long pause. "Lily." It wasn't much, but it was something. Olivia didn't press further. Instead, she gave her driver an address before settling into silence. Lily stared out the window as the streets changed. The bright neon signs and crowded sidewalks gave way to quieter roads, lined with trees and towering buildings that spoke of wealth beyond anything she could comprehend. When the car finally pulled up to a sleek, modern building, Lily felt her stomach tighten. She didn't belong here. The lobby alone was bigger than any place she had ever been in. The floors gleamed under the warm lights, and the air smelled of something floral and unfamiliar. A man at the desk greeted Olivia with a polite nod, his gaze flickering to Lily with the briefest hint of curiosity before returning to his work. Lily kept her head down, gripping her teddy bear tightly. The elevator ride was silent. Olivia didn't try to fill the space with unnecessary words. That, more than anything, made Lily nervous. She was used to people talking, asking questions, demanding answers. This quiet was different. When the doors slid open, Olivia led her down a long hallway before pushing open the door to a sprawling penthouse. Lily hesitated on the threshold. The apartment was nothing like the cramped, dim places she had known. The ceiling stretched high, the walls lined with art she didn't understand. The furniture looked untouched, like something out of a magazine. It was beautiful and terrifying. Olivia set her keys down and turned to face her. "You can shower in there," she said, nodding toward a hallway. I'll get you something to eat." Lily didn't move. She wanted to trust this. She wanted to believe that maybe, just maybe, this wasn't a trick. But experience had taught her otherwise. Still, her body ached. Her stomach twisted painfully with hunger. She swallowed hard. Okay. As Olivia disappeared into the kitchen, Lily made her way to the bathroom. The room was bigger than some of the places she had slept in, the towels neatly stacked, the soap untouched. She hesitated before turning on the water, watching the steam rise. Hot water. She stepped in slowly, flinching at the unfamiliar warmth before letting it soak into her skin. The dirt and grime of the streets washed away in swirling trails down the drain. For the first time in what felt like forever, she felt clean and, for the first time in even longer, safe. In the kitchen, Olivia stood at the counter, staring at the simple plate of food in front of her, a grilled cheese sandwich. It was the only thing she knew how to make herself. Everything else was handled by the house staff. But tonight she had sent them away, unsure of why she didn't want an audience for this. She wasn't sure what she was doing. She wasn't sure why she had brought this girl into her home, why she felt responsible for her. She wasn't the kind of woman who did things like this. And yet, as she heard the soft sound of the shower turning off, she found herself hoping, just a little, that maybe, for once, she had made the right decision. Lily emerged from the hallway hesitantly, dressed in clothes Olivia had left for her. They were slightly too big, the fabric clean and soft against her skin. She sat at the counter, eyeing the sandwich in front of her with suspicion. "You can eat," Olivia said, taking a seat across from her. Lily picked up the sandwich cautiously. It smelled good. She took a small bite. Her hands trembled. It wasn't just food, it was warmth. It was safety. It was something she hadn't felt in longer than she could remember. She ate slowly at first, then faster, as though afraid it might. "Be taken away." Olivia said nothing. She simply watched, a strange tightness forming in her chest. When Lily finally set the plate down, her eyes flickered up to Olivia's for the first time that night. "Thank you," Olivia nodded. It was a simple exchange. No grand gestures, no dramatic words. But in that moment, something shifted, and neither of them knew just how much their lives were about to change. Olivia Carter was not a woman who second-guessed herself. Every decision she made, whether it was acquiring a company, severing a business tie, or negotiating a multi-million-dollar deal, was calculated, deliberate. Doubt had no place in her world. And yet, as she stood in the dim light of her penthouse that night, watching the small girl curled up on her oversized couch, she felt something unfamiliar clawing at the edges of her certainty. She had never intended to bring Lily here. Not really. It had been a momentary impulse, a decision made too quickly for her usual brand of logic to intervene. But now, with the girl wrapped in a thick blanket, breathing softly in sleep, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that this was more than just an act of temporary kindness. She turned away, pressing her fingers against her temple. This was a problem, not just because she had no idea what to do with a child, but because something about Lily unsettled her. Not in a way that made her wary, but in a way that made her remember. That name, Lily. It echoed in her mind like a ghost. From another life. She tried to push the thought away, chalking it up to coincidence, but the unease remained. With a quiet sigh, Olivia moved to the bar cart in the corner, pouring herself a glass of bourbon. She took a slow sip, letting the warmth spread through her. She needed to think. She knew nothing about this girl, where she came from, who her parents were, how long she had been alone, and yet she had brought her here. Why? She wasn't a savior. She wasn't a woman who made decisions with her heart. She was practical, logical, ruthless when necessary, but she wasn't cold, not completely, not always. She turned her gaze back to the couch. Lily was still asleep, her small frame nearly swallowed by the blanket. One arm was draped over her teddy bear, the fabric frayed from years of being held too tightly. Something about the sight made Olivia's chest tighten. She downed the rest of the bourbon, in one swallow. Tomorrow. Tomorrow she would figure out what to do. But for tonight, she would let the girls sleep. Lily woke to the scent of something warm and unfamiliar. For a long moment, she didn't move. She lay still, staring at the ceiling, trying to remember where she was. The couch was soft beneath her, the blanket heavier than anything she had used before. Then, the memories came rushing back. The rain, the woman, the food. She sat up abruptly, her heart pounding. She was still here, her eyes darted around the room, half expecting someone to tell her to leave, that it had been a mistake. Instead, she saw Olivia standing in the kitchen, stirring something in a sleek, modern coffee maker. Lily hesitated before slowly climbing off the couch. She wasn't sure what the rules were here. If there were rules. Olivia glanced up as she approached. "Morning," she said simply, sliding a plate across the counter. "Eat." Lily eyed the plate warily. Eggs. Toast. Something that smelled like bacon. She wasn't used to this. Food had always been whatever she could find, whatever someone would give her. Meals like this were rare, almost foreign. Still, she sat down and picked up the fork, taking a cautious bite. It was good. Too good. She ate slowly at first, then faster, as though afraid it might disappear if she hesitated. Olivia said nothing, simply sipping her coffee as she watched. When Lily finally set her fork down, Olivia leaned forward slightly. "I need to know something," she said. Lily stiffened. Here it was. The part where she asked questions. The part where Lily would have to decide how much of the truth she could afford to tell. Olivia studied her carefully. "Do you have any family?" Lily's grip tightened around her fork. She could lie. She should lie. It was safer that way, but something in Olivia's eyes made her pause. "I don't know," she admitted quietly. It wasn't entirely a lie. Olivia exhaled slowly. She had expected as much. But something about the way Lily said it made her stomach tighten. She reached for her phone, tapping a few keys. "I can have someone look into it, see if there's any record of where you came from." Lily's head snapped up. "No." Olivia frowned. "Why not?" Lily hesitated, because she was scared. Because she didn't know what the truth would bring. Because a part of her wasn't sure she wanted to know. "I just don't," she muttered, looking down. Olivia studied her for a long moment, then set her phone aside. "All right," she said finally. Lily blinked, surprised. She had expected more questions, more insistence, but Olivia just sipped her coffee. The silence stretched between them, thick with unspoken things. Then, just when Lily thought the conversation was over, Olivia spoke again. "You have something of hers, don't you?" Lily's breath caught. For a split second, she considered denying it. But Olivia's gaze was sharp, knowing. Slowly, reluctantly, she reached for the thin chain around her neck and pulled it out from beneath her shirt. A small, worn pendant dangled from it. Olivia stared at it. The blood drained from her face. She knew that pendant. She had seen it before, a long time ago, a lifetime ago. Her pulse roared in her ears as she reached for it, her fingers barely grazing the metal. "Where did you get this?" she whispered. Lily swallowed hard. "It was my mom's." Olivia's vision blurred for half a second, because she knew that pendant, and she knew who it had belonged to. She forced herself to speak, though her voice was barely above a whisper. What was your mother's name?" Lily hesitated. Then, in a voice small and uncertain, she said the name that shattered Olivia's world. Her name was Elena. For a moment, Olivia couldn't breathe. Elena, her sister. The sister she had lost. The sister she had mourned. The sister she had spent years believing was gone forever. And now, staring at the girl in front of her, Olivia realized the impossible truth. Lily wasn't just some lost child. She was family. Olivia couldn't move. The world around her had gone eerily silent, as if everything beyond this moment had ceased to exist. The only sound was the faint hum of the city outside, distant and irrelevant. She stared at the pendant, her mind refusing to process the truth that lay before her. Elena. The name echoed in her chest like a blow she hadn't seen coming. She reached for the pendant again, this time gripping it tightly between her fingers, as if touching it would somehow make it real. The metal was warm from Lily's skin, but it still felt cold in her palm, cold like the grave Olivia had believed her sister to be in for over a decade. She swallowed hard, her throat tightening painfully. Lily watched her carefully, her small hands clutching the edge of the counter. She looked unsure if she had said something wrong, unsure if she had just ruined everything. Finally, Olivia forced herself to speak. "Your mother, Elena?" She hesitated, tasting the name on her tongue for the first time in years. "She was my sister." Lily's eyes widened. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. Then, "You're lying." Her voice was barely a whisper, but there was something sharp in it. A defense mechanism, a reflex built from years of disappointment and loss. Olivia shook her head slowly. "No." Lily took a step back, gripping her teddy bear as though it might hold her together. Her chest rose and fell quickly, panic flickering in her dark eyes. "No, that's not—" She shook her head furiously. "She never talked about you. She never—" Her breath hitched, and Olivia could see the war waging inside her. Hope, fear, confusion, and something else. Pain, the kind that came from being let down too many times. Olivia took a careful step forward. "Lily, listen to me. I lost my sister a long time ago. I thought she was dead. I didn't know she had a child." Her voice wavered slightly, the weight of those words hitting her in real time. "I didn't know about you." Lily's expression wavered, but the walls around her had already snapped back into place. She took another step back, her small hands curling into fists. "Then why didn't she ever come looking for you?" The question struck Olivia harder than she expected. Because it was a fair one. If Elena had been alive all this time, why had she never reached out? Why had she vanished so completely that even Olivia, who had spent years looking, had found nothing? The question lodged itself in Olivia's chest like a blade, sharp and unrelenting. "I don't know," she admitted, "but I intend to find out." For the first time in years, Olivia unlocked the safe in her bedroom. Inside, beneath stacks of documents and legal files, was a single, worn envelope. It had been given to her after the funeral. Elena's funeral, or at least, the one Olivia had been led to believe was hers. The envelope contained only one thing: a death certificate. No body had been recovered. The cause of death was marked as unknown. At the time, Olivia had been too broken to question it. Now, staring at the faded ink, she realized how convenient it was. No body, no autopsy, just a piece of paper declaring Elena gone. Her jaw tightened. Someone had lied to her, and whoever it was had kept Lily in the dark too. She reached for her phone, her fingers moving on instinct as she dialed the only person she trusted with something like this. The line rang twice before a groggy voice answered. "Olivia? It's barely 6 in the morning. What the hell?" "I need you to pull a death record for me," Olivia interrupted, gripping the certificate tightly. "And I need to know if it was faked." There was a pause, then the voice on the other end sighed. "I'm guessing this isn't a business request." "No," Olivia said darkly. "It's personal." Lily sat on the edge of the bed in the guest room Olivia had given her, knees pulled to her chest. She should have felt relieved. She wasn't alone. She had family. But instead, it felt like her world had been thrown into chaos all over again. Because if Olivia was telling the truth, if she really was Elena's sister, then that meant everything. Lily thought she knew about her mother's past was a lie. Her mother had always been careful with her words, especially when it came to family. But now, sitting in this unfamiliar room, Lily was beginning to realize that maybe, just maybe, her mother had been running from something or someone. Her fingers traced the edge of the pendant absently. The only thing she had left of her mother, and now, the only clue she had to a past she had never understood. She exhaled shakily, curling tighter into herself. She didn't know if she could trust Olivia. But she did know one thing: if there were answers to be found, Olivia was the only person who could get them. And for now, That would have to be enough. Olivia paced across her penthouse, phone pressed tightly against her ear. Every muscle in her body was taut, adrenaline surging through her veins. The voice on the other end of the line was calm, almost too calm for the weight of what he had just told her. The death certificate was faked. A cold chill spread through her. We ran the serial number. It doesn't match any official government record. Whoever filed it went to great lengths to make it look real. But legally speaking, Elena Carter was never declared dead. Olivia's grip tightened around her phone. Then where the hell is she? A pause. That's where things get complicated. The man hesitated, as if weighing whether he should even tell her. What? Olivia snapped. What did you find? He exhaled. I traced some old records. Before she died, Elena was seen at a private medical facility upstate, a place known for handling delicate cases. A hospital? No, something deeper, something darker. What kind of facility? Olivia demanded. Psychiatric. The word hit her like a slap. Her sister had been institutionalized? She fought to steady her breathing. Under whose authority? There was another hesitation. Then, his voice dropped to something almost cautious. Your father's. Olivia went completely still. The room seemed to tilt, her mind struggling to process the revelation. Her father. The same man who had ruled their childhood with an iron fist. The same man who had built an empire on discipline and control. The same man who had made Olivia fight for every scrap of approval she had ever received. It didn't make sense. He told me she was dead, Olivia whispered. I don't think he wanted you looking for her. Olivia clenched her jaw. Her father had been a powerful man, a master of manipulation. If he had orchestrated Elena's disappearance, it wasn't out of incompetence, it was deliberate. But why? What had Elena known? What had she done that made their father go to such lengths to erase her? And why had Elena never come back? She had spent years believing her sister was dead, mourning her. But now, standing here, she felt something she hadn't felt in a long time. Rage. She needed answers, and she needed them now. Lily watched from the doorway as Olivia slammed her phone onto the counter, her expression dark and unreadable. She had never seen the woman look shaken before, and yet there was something else in her eyes too. Determination. Lily hesitated before stepping forward. What's wrong? Olivia exhaled, running a hand through her hair. For a long moment she didn't answer. Then, I think your mother is alive. Lily's breath hitched. She stared at Olivia, eyes wide, trying to comprehend the weight of those words. But that's not possible. Her voice was barely a whisper. Olivia looked at her. Would you trust me to find out? Lily hesitated. Trust. It was something she had learned not to give freely, but Olivia was the only person who had ever fought for her. And deep down, Lily wanted to believe. Slowly, she nodded. The drive to the facility was long, cutting through endless stretches of empty road. Olivia barely spoke, her hands gripping the wheel tightly. Lily sat beside her, clutching the pendant around her neck. She had spent years believing she had no family. Now, in the span of a single day, everything had changed. Her mother might be alive, and Olivia was the only person who could bring her back. The thought made her chest ache. After what felt like an eternity, the car pulled up to an old, gated building. The sign out front was faded, almost unreadable, but Olivia knew what it said. This was the place. She took a steadying breath before stepping out of the car. Lily followed, her small fingers gripping Olivia's sleeve. For the first time since she had met Olivia, she wasn't afraid. Together, they walked through the doors. The facility was eerily quiet, the air thick with something that felt like forgotten time. Olivia approached the front desk, her voice steady but firm. I need to see a patient. The nurse barely looked up. We don't take visitors without prior approval. Olivia slid a sleek black card onto the counter. You do today. The woman hesitated, then glanced at the card. Recognition flickered in her eyes. A name like Olivia Carter carried weight. Wait here. She disappeared down the hall. Lily's fingers tightened around Olivia's hand. Minutes stretched into eternity before the nurse returned. "Follow me." The hallway smelled of antiseptic and dust. Every step felt heavier than the last. Then, finally, they reached the door. The nurse unlocked it, stepping aside. Olivia took a deep breath before pushing it open. Inside, sitting by a window, was a woman. Her hair was long, streaked with silver, but her face. Even after all these years, Olivia recognized her instantly. Elena. Lily let out a tiny gasp. The woman turned, and her eyes landed on them. For a moment, she just stared, as if her mind couldn't process what she was seeing. Then, "Olivia?" Her voice was cracked, fragile, as though it hadn't been used in years. Something inside Olivia shattered. Elena. The name broke from her lips, raw and filled with something she had spent years burying. Lily took a hesitant step forward. The woman's gaze shifted. Her breath caught. "Lily?" And then all at once she began to cry. Not quiet tears, not soft sobs, but deep, broken weeping, the kind that came from years of loss and longing. Olivia didn't hesitate. She crossed the room and pulled her sister into her arms. Lily, after only a moment's hesitation, did the same, for the first time. In years, they weren't alone. For the first time in years, they were a family again. And this time, Olivia would never let go.